Okay, color wheels, right? We already talked about how the spectrum of visible light that we see, if we take both ends and put them together, we have a wheel, and that's our color wheel. So let's talk primary colors, secondary and tertiary. Tertiary colors. Tertiary. I don't like that word. Okay, primary colors, red, blue, yellow. Boom. Out of these colors, red, blue, and yellow, you can mix all of the other colors. Now, I know a lot of people will actually sit there screaming at the screen right now. What about CMY? Cyan, magenta, and yellow. That's pretty much the exact colors that you need to mix all of the colors out. Cyan, magenta, and yellow. I will just refer to the primary colors as red, blue, and yellow from here on because it's just easier, you know. But if you were to mix colors out of primary colors, go with cyan and magenta and yellow. Just saying. Alright, we have our primary colors. Then we also have secondary colors, which can be mixed from the primary colors. So if you mix yellow and red, you will get orange. If you mix red and blue, you will get violet. If you mix yellow and blue, you will get green. Still pretty basic, and you can find those colors on the color wheel in the middle between the colors that you mixed it from. Very easy. Next step would be tertiary colors. Tertiary. You get tertiary colors by mixing the primary color with a secondary color. So for example, if you mix yellow, which is a primary color, with green, which is a secondary color, you will get something like a yellow-green. That is a tertiary color, and again, it will be on the color wheel right in the middle between those two colors that you mixed it from. So why do you need to know this? First of all, it's kind of important to know how to mix colors, so there you go. But secondly, you will definitely have to know this if you want to use color schemes for your paintings. So let's get into those. Okay, let's talk color schemes. There are different schemes that you can use, kind of like a map, to know which kind of colors you want to use for your painting. Maybe map is not the right word. What's the right word? Pattern or stencil. Stencil is good. So you can think of it kind of like a pattern or a stencil that you can use to pick colors for your composition, for your drawings. These schemes will make sure that your colors are very well thought through, and I'm gonna get into some of them. They're actually quite easy. You just have to remember the color wheel and you're good to go. That's all you need. Okay, so the first scheme that is a little bit obvious, I guess, would be the monochromatic scheme, and that is when you just use one color basically. So it's not like you use the same color for everything, because then you obviously would have just a blob of pink on your page. You can change the saturation or the value of the color, but it stays the same hue, right? So think of it as when you use Photoshop, you pick a color and then you can go and use the brightness and saturation sliders, but not the hue slider, right? There's also a difference between a monochromatic color scheme and a accent color, because you could have a drawing that is mostly in grayscale and then use one color to put like an accent. So for example, if you had a drawing of a guy wielding fire magic or shooting a fireball, and the whole drawing is in grayscale but the fireball is in red, then that would put an accent on the fireball and highlight that and pull the viewer's eye toward that. But it's different than using a monochromatic color scheme. Another scheme that is really easy to memorize, but I personally find kind of hard to pull off, is analogous. Analogous means that you use colors that are next to each other on the... That way you still have a little range of different colors, so they might all fall into a blue purplish range, but you have a little bit more diversity in your colors than as if you would use a monochromatic scheme, but you still get the same kind of effect of something that is very similar and monochromatic seeming. You just have a little bit more colors to play around with. if that's pulled off very well, I think it looks amazing. I just personally find it very hard to do that because I find it hard to pull off. Next scheme is complementary. Next scheme would be complementary, and I'm pretty sure that you heard about that before. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel. So the complementary color of red would be green, and of blue would be orange, and of yellow would be violet, and that will give you two colors that play off of each other very well, because if you put complementary colors next to each other, they enhance each other in vibrancy. That's also one of the reasons why traffic lights use green and red color, because they seem more vibrant if they are next to each other, or you know. So for a complementary color scheme, you could either pick two colors that are complementary to each other or a bunch of colors. The thing with complementary, I can't pronounce that word. There's the thing that you have to keep in mind with complementary colors though, and that's that they don't mix well. They work very well when you put them next to each other, but for example blending them can be tricky, because if you add a color's complement to it, those two colors, they will actually cancel each other out, and that can make things very muddy and not so pleasing to look at. So if you choose to do a complementary color scheme, definitely be aware of that. Next to each other, fine. Together, tricky, not so good, can get muddy. I would stay away from that. Alright, last of the big main schemes that a lot of people use is triadic. It kind of works like complementary, and I will put on the screen how triadic works, but it's definitely a triangle between colors. Kind of hard to explain that, but you'll get it when you see it. You could basically put a triangle on the color wheel and then just turn it to get triadic colors. So if you want to use any of these schemes, there are little things that you could do to change them up a little bit, especially if you have scenes that use a lot of different colors. If you paint something that will need a lot of different colors that are all kind of different from each other, but you still want to use a scheme to pull them together, then there's something called split. Not sure how you say this, splitting, or anyways, so you could basically have a split complementary scheme or a split triadic scheme. What that means is that you move the scheme around a little bit to more fit your needs. PC was turning off. So an example for split complementary. So an example for split complementary would be you pick a color. Let's say violet is your main color that you pick for a drawing, and then you want to look at your complementary color, which would be yellow, but you don't take that one, you take the two colors that are at the side. So that would be what, a yellow orange and a yellow green instead of a yellow. So that way you have more of a range of colors and you don't only stick to two colors, you have three. And you can do the same with triadic. You could have two colors that are triadic to each other, like red, and then one here, it's blue, and then the third one would be yellow, but you move it slightly to one side, either left or right, whatever you want to do, and instead of yellow you use yellow green. So that way you can kind of shift to colors that are more what you want. You know, if you have some sort of scene where you don't really need yellow, but you could use a color that goes more into yellow orange or yellow green, you can kind of shift your scheme to suit that a little more, and that's called split. So I'm gonna go and take a look at my painting that I'm doing right now, the sunflower painting, and I will use these schemes to kind of check my colors and see if I maybe accidentally have used a color scheme, or what kind of color schemes I could use for my painting. So I'm gonna do that now. I think that could be interesting. So there's this website by Adobe. It's called color.adobe.com, I will put it in the description so you guys won't have to search for that. It's an amazing resource. I have used this before. Okay, so what is this? This shows you a color wheel and it will help you pick color schemes. So you have this drop down menu, and as you can see, you can choose different schemes like analogous, monochromatic, triadic, complementary, and they have a compound one, which I have never heard before, and they have a custom option and then shades, for example. So this one, for example, if you have a color, you could pick any color that you want to use in your painting, and it will generate colors that you could use to shade that base color with, which I think is super helpful if you just kind of don't know how to shade a certain color. Definitely very good for inspiration. So that's how I used this before. I don't use this always, I just, you know, sometimes when I feel stuck. But you can use this for color schemes. So I'm gonna show you what I did. I picked a color from my painting, and I picked I think I picked this yellow or some sort of yellow, because I knew that was gonna be, or that is gonna be, a very dominant color in the picture because there are a lot of sunflowers. I picked that color and I copied the hex code from Photoshop. Oops. And then, wait, let me actually pick another color up here so kind of see the difference more, because that is also yellow. Okay, so and then I paste my color in there, hit enter, and boom, that's the color that I picked. And as you can see, this little thing already does its job. This says analogous here, so it is automatically generating an analogous color scheme. So this would be all colors that are kind of in the same range, right? You could go monochromatic, triadic, complementary, and I actually liked compound a lot. Complementary looks good too, but I like compound. This is actually not the right color. It changed a little bit, so I'm just gonna copy my hex code again. And this is the color scheme that it came up with for me. And this is so cool because this actually looks a lot like the colors that I'm using in my painting already. So I would say I had a pretty good eye. So if you look at the color scheme that Adobe came up with for me, you can tell that I already picked very similar colors. So this brownish color is very similar to what she's wearing. The orange is very similar to what's here. And then the two blues you can actually find in the sky, which is very hard to tell right now because the camera is messing with the colors as always. But just trust me on this, that these two blues, especially this one, is or are in disguise. So I think I actually had a pretty good eye when it came to the colors. And all I did now was just look at these and change my colors in my drawing a little bit more to be closer to these ones so that they are a little bit more harmonious. And that's what I did. And now they look like this. And again, it's very hard to tell on camera, but it looks better. This definitely pulled the picture together a lot more, I think. Some might argue that this one is better, but I personally prefer this one. And again, I will put them on the screen so you can compare directly. So basically, this is the difference without the value. So I first put some value and then I put a color change. So if I turn that value layer off, this is what I started with before studying a little bit of color theory, and this is what I got now. And again, I will put them on the screen because my camera won't pick up any of these colors, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm actually very impressed of how a little bit of color theory can change a drawing so much for the better. I repeated the fundamentals, most of which I already knew, so to me this is kind of blowing my mind how just knowing these very basic things and actually making use of them can help you so much with pulling things together in a drawing. So I am happy and I'm impressed, and I definitely want to keep studying this topic and document my experience with that as well and document what I have learned. But I think for this video this is it, because we covered the basics, the absolute minimal basics that I have to know about color theory, and I think I understand them now, and I definitely learned something, and I just can't wait to dive a little bit deeper into the material, but that's not gonna happen in this video. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little study with me thing, or study along thing. I hope you actually did study along and learned something, or just enjoyed watching me study color theory. Please give me critique, because I feel like sometimes I might have been a little bit all over the place with the things that I talked about. So if you have any critique for me, things that I could do better next time, please tell me. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and please leave a like. That would mean so much to me.